All right. Well, we're going to get on to our speaker for today, and it's my honor to introduce Anna Presicari. Dr. Anna Presicari is working as a user experience researcher at Amazon. Before Amazon, Anna worked at Honeywell, where she worked on commercial building technologies and at an augmented reality startup, which sounds really cool. Anna received her master's and a PhD degree in human computer interaction at Iowa State University, and moved to Minneapolis 6 years ago and now lives in Minnetonka. Shortly after she came to Minnesota and joined the City of Lakes Rotary Club last summer, and traveled to Warsaw, Poland, and delivered medical aid for hospitals in Ukraine and brought 3 teenagers from Ukraine who today study at Minnetonka schools. Thanks for doing that. So please welcome Anna Presicari.
Good morning. All right. I want to introduce our today's speaker, Josh Sprague. Okay, I should have asked earlier. We actually met. He introduced me when I went to Edina, his club, when he was president. I was giving the talk on Ukraine. So now it's payback. I'm introducing you to my club members. Wonderful. Josh is a past president of Rotary Club in Edina. Since 2017, Josh has traveled to the Cuban region of Guatemala to work on water service projects. In 2019, he led the first Rotary-sponsored water service trip with 32 participants from 6 different District 5950 clubs. The group assembled and delivered 659 individual household water purifiers, funded through a district grant to remove mountainous villages or aldeas. All right, welcome, Josh.
How's everybody doing today? I like close microphones. I'm a microphone eater, so this works out. So thank you so much for having me. First, I just want to say to Laka that I know I can say with absolute certainty that Santa Claus is real. I've seen him at many malls, and I've even sat on his lap. So gotta cover that part up. I have such a great relationship with this club, so many connections. Teddy Bear, who was district governor, and is a great friend of our past president, past district governor, Tim Murphy. Julie, who was pandemic president and went through that year and survived. Basically, it was like 7 years in one, but we're still here. Anna, who's come and worked on this Ukraine project, and thank you so much for the introduction and for visiting us at our club. And I hope that you'll all come join us. We call ourselves the #1 club in the universe, but this morning we're the top 2 clubs in the universe. So before I get started, it's so cool because as I was pulling in the parking lot, I remember coming as a kid to the Oak Grove building. And my mom, this is my mother, she's 82 now. She has dementia, and probably, I don't know if she'll remember this or not, but she had an office here, and she ran in the 70s. She ran an all women's newspaper called Twin Cities Woman. And that was headquartered right here. So this is the woman that raised me, and good to see you this morning, Mom. So I just wanted to share that little connection to the spot. The reason why international service to me is so important is not only the transformative experience it can have on you as an individual, but also as a strategy for a club for leadership development. It is a great tool. And as I was coming up in the ranks in Rotary, I was watching people travel. Tim Murphy and co. were going to Africa, and there were people going here and there. And I just was thinking about it. And by serendipity, I ended up going on a trip in 17. And this is kind of where the journey begins for me. But I will say that looking at international service as a leadership development tool is important. And early on when we started to do this, we actually set aside money to underwrite under 30-year-old leaders to go on this trip. So we took a portion of the trip for the younger members, and it increased our participation. And I think that's important. As you know, Rotary needs to build itself from the bottom up in terms of age to keep vibrant. So just another little comment. So where were we going? We were going to Cuban, Guatemala. This is directly south of where we are right now. And actually, one nice thing about Central America is it's very easy to travel to. Who's been on an international service trip here? Okay, who wants to go on an international service trip? Okay, who is just happy to be awake this morning? All right, so this is an easy trip for those of you looking for a low barrier, low cost way to get into the game. And when we go, we travel to a few different areas. Guatemala City is the main airport. And then there's a town south of there called Escuintla. You'll hear me talk about where the National Hospital is. It's about an hour south. And then also to the left of Guatemala City, you'll see that dot is Antigua, which is a beautiful little colonial tourist city, which is kind of our debrief and relaxed city. And then up north, 5 hours from Guatemala City, is Cuban, where the main service happens. And in the introduction, Anna was saying the remote villages, or aldeas. The aldeas are the remote villages, and it's super, super remote. Nothing like that remote in our state that I could compare it to. So in 2017, I went for the first time with St. Patrick's. They had been doing a youth trip to Guatemala in partnership with the monastery there for many years. And these youth leaders were very vibrant. And I thought, maybe I'll just go check this out. They had done many projects with this monastery in Cuban, but water seemed to work out the best for the partnership. And what they landed on after many years were these individual household water purifiers. Does this have a pointer? Oh, perfect. Thank you. So this is like a 10-gallon, think of it as like a little trash can. And if you take this top off, this carbon filter screws into the top here. And then this just slides around, and there's a top, and then you mount this little spigot so you can get the water out. So it's a very easy to assemble piece. It's manufactured in country and delivered to our partner in country. So in other words, it's turnkey for the participants. We show up at the monastery, and then all you have to do is load the equipment up and go into the mountains and assemble and deliver. So it was a very efficient project. And these, you know, in Guatemala, I would say, because of how remote it is, and people are living in huts, other structures, like in the middle of nowhere, and they're walking between their locations. And so there's really not a centralized location up where this is, but this allows them to purify enough water to support a household of 10. And when you go to the places they live, it's going to be 10 people. It might be 6 in their household plus the neighbor down the mountain road for another 5 or 6 people. Whatever they can do to get purified water. Also, a thing to know about Guatemala up here is there's not, in the mountains, there's some little streams, but for the most part, it's catch basin water, which can get polluted with animal feces and bacteria. Anyone who's drunk a mountain stream and gotten sick, you know about that, Giardia or whatever. So this is something that very easily, the technology allows them to not be sick. And another part of international travel that I'm sure all of you who raised your hand said you've gone to, that's important to know, is if you've experienced sickness while you're on the trip, I don't want to say it's an important part of the trip. It's a fact of life, but it gives you some type of idea about how important it is to have clean water. Me, myself, with my sensitive gut, I've gotten sick every time I've gone. And so it always makes me appreciate, what's it like to live with a bacteria, and how does that affect what I do day to day? So just a small point. So there's us with the parishioners the first time. So I came back from this and I thought, wow, this was a 7-day itinerary. And I looked at how it affected me, my point of view, 7 days. And we went all over. And I said, this is such a great experience. I would love to reproduce this for my friends in Rotary. And maybe there's a way that, Rotary is great with partnerships. Maybe there's a way we can scale this up. The operation was kind of already developed, so it might be easy to do. And so St. Patrick's agreed, and we scaled up their project. We did a district grant. They did half. We raised the other half. Thank you to your club. You've been with us basically every time we've done this grant. So I really appreciate the partnership. And away we went to Guatemala, went from 350 household filters to 659. So it was a big year. This was pre-COVID. We had 6 Rotary clubs. Look at the cost of the trip. I mean, that at the time, that included airfare. So it was a very low cost. And as I mentioned, we underwrited $300 of that per traveler for our club. So a lot of people signed up. Same thing, 7-day itinerary, flying into Guatemala City, up to Cuban, and then back to Antigua. And then this year we visited our Escuintla Global Grant. You probably were a part of that as well. And that was a water tower and a chlorination facility for a big town. But we got to go to the opening of that as well. And while we were there, we toured this hospital, and this is where the Escuintla partnership starts. So service scope was $29,000, as mentioned, and this trip generated a ton of relationships. Note to self that in addition to transforming and creating leaders in your club, you're also creating incredible in-country relationships that cannot be reproduced by Zoom. When you get into these people's backyards and their homes, and they're giving you their personal stories, it just takes it to a whole nother level. So here we are in a fountain in Guatemala City. My wife actually came on this trip, which was another cool experience. And this, another important point, this was Rotarians and non-Rotarians. And Kelly made friends with the Rotarian women that went on this trip, and they made lifelong friendships basically just from being there 7 days. It's crazy. Here's the Resurrection Monastery with the high-tech security, ADT security up here on top. This is a nice place to go. It's another reason why I really like this trip was it's a walled off compound. Think of it almost like a campus. It has a main building, a lot of outbuildings and storage buildings, which is great to store the filters, a small soccer court, a church, a school, and a now mental health facility, all within the walls. So very secure. Here we are kind of arriving at the facility. This is our transportation. Yes, there's air conditioning. So you're going to love that. It really makes it nice. And some pictures of the grounds, just a beautiful, humble place. Here's the church on the back lot, and the school's over here. Okay, the relationship machine. So we got to meet our partners, the Cuban Rotary Club. Here's the president and another member, Juan Castillo, who helped us. That was a really cool thing for us who had never met a club from another country. And do you think we've done more projects with the Rotary Club of Cuban? Yes. So let me just give you this. I've got till 8, what time, 8:30, 8:25, 8:28, perfect. Past presidents can appreciate that. So let me just set this up. So you get on the bus from the monastery, you go on the bus, hour and a half on some paved roads, and then you get to the road up to the area of the aldeas or villages. Sometimes the bus can't even go up the road because it's so rough. It's like a washed out road. And to replenish the road, they throw rocks onto the road so that it can get traction again. So if we couldn't get the bus to go, the four-wheelers take all the equipment up, and then we walk behind. And so here's us emerging from the brush. And the people are waiting. A lot of this, now this is a Catholic monastery, which is another great part to have this in-country service partner who could talk to the village leadership, arrange for the deliveries in these various villages, and then develop the delivery roster with the village leadership. So who's going to get these filters? Because it's not every family, unfortunately. It's this many families, and how do they rank it? Number of children, have they had any water, purifiers in the past, et cetera. So they're waiting for us here, and away we go. First thing we do is some ice breaking activities. So we had some bubbles. We had some little Rotary tattoos Jennifer Benarott got for us, our past president. We did some nail painting, which the little girls loved. We had some soccer balls donated by the Edina Soccer Club, which was just a huge, huge hit. And so we just kind of get this ice breaking and then eventually settle into the assembly and the delivery portion. Look at those faces. I mean, it's the best part. Now this is their soccer ball, but we brought them actual Edina soccer balls, which is really cool to see. So we're having a little mass, but before the assembly and delivery begins. And of course, they're always thinking, who are these crazy blue-shirted people coming in? Here's John, another past president of our club, showing his iPad to some kids. But just picture yourself being surrounded by all this curiosity and truly love in this situation, with actually probably no language being used. Who's fluent Spanish speakers here? Anybody? See, that's about the same numbers as on the trip, like a couple people. And then there's people like me with some broken Spanish. I do Spanish, Italian, I do Spanish, English, and the people just kind of nod like, okay, I don't know what he's saying. But so you're doing all of this. A lot of this is nonverbal. It's a really unique experience. Then we assemble, and then we line up, and they are talking in their native language, which is not Spanish. It's Quechua. It's a local, it's Mayan. It's Mayan. And most of these, the delivery villages are Mayan people. And so they tell us who the family is. We walk up and we get to actually hand deliver to the family. That's a very special moment as well. In terms of the actual work, it's not that much work. That also is a reason to do a trip like this for your first international trip, because it's an all ages trip. Basically, anyone could do this. As long as you can walk down a rugged road, you qualify to go. I never forget that. That was Val Burke from the school district communications director. There's the team. And I think about, we're talking about leadership development. Anyone know John Crudelli here? He was a president that year too. But I look at this person, now she's going to be a president next year, Shelley Loberg. International Service Chair now for 2 years. Going on the foundation board. I mean, there's a lot of leadership development that happens out of a trip. Here's us with the community there. This was our oldest trip member. He was Dr. Dash. He was probably like 78 or something at this juncture. Having some beers at the local tienda. Got to have beers on the trip. I mean, one of the things that the monastery brother said is, we did not know that Rotarians drank so much. I was like, yeah, we're putting the fun back in fun. Drazer. Kelly with some of the local kids. I mean, look at these faces. It's just, ugh, man. And then, so we finished our work up there in 19. Then we went to Escuintla. That was that town that was south to open this water tower. Here's the mayor, and we're opening the spigot. And we were just, I had nothing to do with this project. I was just the statesperson going to represent the club. And they had a parade. And the minute we got off the bus, literally a parade, like we walked off the bus and they're like, come this way. And there was an entire town and they paraded us to a square. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. And then here's us meeting the Escuintla National Hospital directors for the first time. This is Dr. Sofia Posadas and Dr. Menendez. Here's the president of the Rotary Club of Escuintla, and then some of their members. And this was also kind of a side journey on our trip. One of the things I love about international travel as well is it's very organic. Like you could be, we're very linear, right? Gotta have the agenda. And there, it's very non-linear there. And so you may just take a side path and all of a sudden that's when the magic happens. So this was when the magic happened. Rolando's father had been a director of this hospital a long time ago. He said, by the way, let's just take you to this hospital. We're gonna give you a little tour of this pediatric center. By the way, it's the largest pediatric center in Guatemala, meaning that this hospital served the entire country of Guatemala. So if you lived like 6 hours away, you could drive to this hospital and be served. There's 17 million people plus or minus in Guatemala. So imagine running a hospital that serves 17 million people. Anyone want the job? No. To make matters worse, what we learned is that there's a lot of birth complications in this area, poverty, and some other things contributing to that. Not a lot of pre-birth nutrition, etc. And so they have a lot of birth complications in addition to just a volume of births, like 20, 30 births a day. It's crazy. So then we came back from that trip. We kept in contact with the director of the hospital, and we said, and one of the things we learned as well was that they had a water problem at the hospital. Now you'd think that the country would do something about it in their national hospital. No, they don't do anything. So they had E. coli in their water, and the doctor himself had gotten E. coli in his finger. And in this entire hospital, they had one sink. Think about a hospital. They had one sink that was clean water, and he turned the faucet on and it was like dribbling out. And that was their one place to scrub up, etc. Not for the patients, nothing. That was just the one place. And so the mortality rate was like 35% for their pediatric patients. So again, anyone a doctor here? Okay, well, just think about your business being a 35% failure rate with whatever you do. That is a disheartening thing. And it was something that they could not control. So water is the first thing we started to work on with the hospital. And I'll share with you that when we came back this time, the mortality rate went from 35% to like 3%. And that was in 3 years of this partnership with Rotary. So give yourselves a hand for that, because that's all of us in Rotary. You're here. So they came, we flew them out, the doctors and their children. This is during the 2019 Rotary year. They presented us with this from the villages, and they came and spoke to our club and talked about the problems of the hospital. And this is where, again, the partnership and the funding started. We had a private donor step up to do $28,000 project that ended up to be pediatric exam tables. We started the water project. Milwaukee ended up picking it up, and we contributed to that for new wells, et cetera, et cetera. It all started with this one little trip to Guatemala. There's the kids and Shelley. And in addition, so you cannot make up these things I'm about to tell you. So in addition, after we came back that year, 2019, we talked to this gentleman, John Kaufman from a California Rotary Club, who was doing this solar powered water purifier system manufactured in California. And he had a Rotary project called H2 Open Doors. And I had met him, and while the doctors were here in Minnesota, he met with them just by serendipity, happened to be in town. We introduced them, and he said, And these things are about $30,000 for this unit. And he said, after meeting these doctors, he said, just by happenstance, we were going to install this in Santa Lucia, and the mayor wanted us to pay him a tribute for installing this. And we said, Mayor, we'd love to be your partner, but we can't fund graft. I'm sorry. Not in our charter. And so, I mean, can you imagine? Can you imagine that? That's just the things that happen. And so he said, and so doctors Posadas and Menendez, we can offer you the system already paid for free, and we can go install it in 3 months. And this system purifies like 10 to 20,000 gallons of water a day. So a few months later, again, after this little trip, all of a sudden they got this picture and they were there on top of the hospital installing this water purifier. This was kind of a short-term solution before the wells and the Milwaukee project and other things got started. But this allowed them to open like a whole wing. The NICU, the neonatal intensive care unit, and the PQ, the pediatric intensive care unit, got fresh water from this. And so the mortality rates are going down right away. Now just think if we had never gone on this trip and never met these people and never put these people together in Minnesota just by serendipity, that thing wouldn't happen, and what would have happened because of that, and what would have not happened. And again, I'm telling you, man, just organically things happen on these trips. You got to be there to make it happen. So 2 years later, 2021, anyone have fun that year, 2021? Who was the president 2020, 2021? Are they here? She's probably at home sleeping still from that year. So we went back in 2021. I had already written a grant. Thank you again. You supported us. And the problem was no one wanted to travel. So I had to assemble people. And luckily, because our club was kind of the author of this, we had enough people to go. And so 10 of us went. It was the same amount. Inflation hadn't hit. Same itinerary, Saturday to Saturday. And we were able to get a little bit better deal. So I got more units. I kind of used my sales skills. This is what we do in Rotary, vocational. You can use your skills for humanity. And I said, we need to get that unit cost down a little bit. So we got some more units and we went back. And on this trip, another organic Saida story began. Here we are. Ooh, the skeleton crew just getting there, you know, a lot of masks and quarantining. And oh my goodness, it was something else. Our driver, Hugo, still here. Here's Michael Stanzak, who is the incoming president. And again, in terms of the experience and how that supercharges a person's year in leadership, it was incredible. Off in the bush with our caravan, meeting the villagers. Again, makeshift, these little makeshift sanctuaries. Here's us doing some assembly. This gentleman was a non-Rotarian who owned a manufacturing company of pediatric exam tables that in the shape of animals. And when we went the first time, we inventoried, and in their emergency room, which sees like hundreds of people a day, they were using benches to examine people. And then there was one table it had to be like 1947. This thing was so old. But that was one of the things we got to do, was partner with this guy and that private donor we had talked about to bring these pediatric exam tables back. And you'll see this in a second. So again, personal delivery. This is on top, a village way up on top, the highest I had ever been. We got to do a little bit of recreation on the side. This was another organic little side thing that happened. We found this little tiny waterfall area. We did we went inside of a cave, which was really cool. There it is. And then we had a lot of dinners like this. Here's the monastery leadership here. And then the rest of us. And this is towards the end of the trip. And then you can see a little marimba band. Nice touch. And then while we were in one of the villages, I noticed a girl, this girl right here, Saida. You see that? She had a huge cyst the size of a grapefruit on her face. And I looked at her, and just in my little rotary wheel started spinning on my heart. And I said, just a quick thought. I'm like, this girl has no future. Like she's in the middle of nowhere and she has a major medical condition. We got to do something. So it just came 1 second through my head. So then we are leaving the village where she was. The bus breaks down. They got to change a tire. This is like 2 miles away. And so I'm sitting there and I'm talking to Susan Stiles. And I said, did you see that little girl? Yeah, I saw her. Yeah, that really worries me. I just like, if we don't make some connection here, she's got no chance. Yes, I agree. So we're sitting there and I swear to God, the family starts walking by. And I'm like, Susan, let's go talk to them. She's like, what? I'm like, yeah, let's go. So we go, because she knows Spanish. Okay, don't forget that part. So we go out there and we go up to the little hut, and we walk up this little hill. There's a cornfield in this little hut. And we walk in and we say, hello, we're from the International Service Organization Rotary. We're here for water. We saw you in the village, yada, yada. And we say, we're very concerned about your daughter, and we're about to go visit this hospital. We have friends who run the hospital, pediatric hospital. Would you be interested in us doing a quick, advisory phone call with her to take a look at what's going on with your daughter? After some misgivings, they said yes. So I'm sitting there in this cornfield in the middle of Guatemala with one bar on WhatsApp video. And the girl's here, and I'm going like this. And Sofia, Dr. Posadas, is examining her from Escuintla. And she's looking at it, and she says she needs to get in right away. This is very, very dangerous. She's having trouble breathing. It's interfering with her, with her throat, et cetera. And if she doesn't get in within a few months, she'll be dead. So we scramble back and we say, and this begins another conversation with the family. Hey, by the way, we just want to take your daughter 8 hours away. Would you be okay with that? Just met us, gringos, but I promise you it's going to be okay. So we started this conversation, and eventually the family agreed for us to take her, but they said, we want to go too. So we got another bus, quickly chartered, and she came with us. Now here's the condition. It was a simple endodontic cyst. So imagine you go to the doctor here, and the doctor's like, hey, teddy bear, you got this little thing right here. Gotta just take it out. But she never had that done because there's no dental care. So it grew and grew and grew. And she went from this to this. So we brought her to the hospital the day that our new tables were being delivered, and she was the first patient on that chair. How about that? There's her mother, Marta. They had never been on a bus. They had never been out of their village. They had never been in a major hospital. So it was all very foreign. And there was a lot of crying and reassuring, but we got her there. And then we came back from the trip. The Sun Current did this article. And again, it just supercharged our club's desire to be involved in international service and be involved in these stories directly. And here's before. And then there's after. And this is after a couple years ago. So now I'm going to fast forward to our trip this year. 11 travelers, 8 Rotarians from 3 clubs, couple guests. We did a couple extra days, pretty much the same service scope. Oops. So here's the service team this year. Went to Guatemala City. That's my sister actually came this time. There's Hugo, our driver. Nice accommodations. This is our tour operator, and he does some tour guiding in Guatemala City. This is the Mayans against the conquerors, and then right behind here are the priests. The Catholic Church and the conquistadors are what conquered the country of Guatemala. Here we are doing a social justice tour, looking at the history and the people that were murdered in the Civil War of Guatemala. So there's a cultural component to this as well that we learn. Then we go up to Coban, 5-hour trip. Look at how lush that is. The coffee is excellent. I don't know if anyone here likes coffee. Oh, your morning meeting. That's right. Here we are in front of the monastery. That's a parishioner, Jim, who's been on every trip. some of the facilities, the facility crew, us. Oh, look, drinks. See, Rotarians always got a drink in their hand. This is in the monastery, and during breakfast, you actually can't talk. It's one of those monastery things. We tried to get a waiver, but they're like, nope. Getting ready to go to the villages, loading up the truck. Rotary Club of Cuban again. Look at this. That's going into the town. There's the watchdog.
Hi, baby.
There's where we're going in that temple in there. And there's our truck, one of the trucks. Breaking the ice. Assembly. Now here you hear him reading the roster. Great human contact. It's such a great moment. There's us with the group. Back up the road to another delivery. We work our volunteers very hard. You come back so svelte from this trip, you probably lose 6 pounds. These are actually they're in the Global E-Club. E-Travelers. Another landscape view to another delivery. One of the things that they give us is a lot of hospitality, and they always give us fruit. I mean, I got plates of fruit. Look at how big this plate is. That's not a platter. That's for one person. So you got to eat a lot of fruit. Again, back to some deliveries. That's a Rotary Club of Cuban member we've made some great friendships with. I love these shots. That's the gentleman helping out. And we play a little soccer afterwards with the kids. This is the highest point I went to. This is Santa Cruz something something. It was way up. Cutting fruit. This is one of the monastery brothers there with us. Jim assembling the team with our monastery brothers. And then we got to go to the Rotarian's house. He helped us relax again. Look at all this alcohol here. We got lots of drinks. Yeah. This is, now here's Saida now. Here's her dad, who now has become like one of the kind of like the leaders in the village. We actually got to deliver to her. So here's before, here's after. She still has 4 reconstructive surgeries that are being funded and helped by our friend at the hospital. Running out of time, so I'm going to just quickly go through. There's us with, that's Saida's sister right here. Again, look at the fruit. Holy buckets. And then we got to see the new land they have. They're going to be building a home there for Saida. So there's some economic development that came out of this trip. Us saying goodbye again. And then some fun in Antigua and back to Escuintla to the hospital, doing another trip. And the last thing I want to tell you is, I always tell you there's a story on every trip organically. You got to be here to experience it. But while we were in this pediatric intensive care unit, there was a burn victim. And we found out that this kid his parents had thrown scalding hot water on him. And that's why he was in the burn unit. And so we're working, one of our Rotarians is working to help this child. He's going to have a rough road ahead, not just in terms of recovery, but in terms of finding a place to live and some other things. And that way we were right there at his bedside. Here's some of the equipment we donated and some of our future projects. These laundry machines are from 1947. How'd you like to do your drying on that? And then here's the water. So this is the first project. This was the second one I showed you. And then this is the water tower at the hospital. And those mortality rates coming way down. And then the last thing is we just did a quick trip to Lake Atitlan. We saw some temples. We had lunch at a villager's home, microeconomic development. We looked at how they make weave materials, and then we had lunch. That's it. Thank you.
I know we're running out of time for questions. Will you have a couple minutes so if you have more questions, please come up and ask your questions. In honor, well, thank you first of all to come and speak. I recognize Jen was there, a couple of people that I actually made friends with. We have a couple gifts. We have one. This is a pen. It's very wonderful pen. It has your name on it. So it's for you to keep. And in honor of speaking, I'll ask you to sign a book that we will be donating to Way to Grow, local nonprofit, that it's going to go to a third grader.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much again. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Great program. I want to thank our volunteers for today. Our greeter, Jim Nelson, aka Teddy Bear. I have to learn something more about that. Reflection from Laka, who has left for work already. Our vocational from Meg Waterman. Thank you. Wonderful job. Day chair, Anna Presicari. Zoom masters, Brian and Brock. Club administrators, Dick and Steve, as well as our interns, Savannah and Raylyn, that I think have left for school already. Thanks for Hugh for joining us today. Love to see you again. And is going to be here. And she, a couple of years ago, led the International Urban Sketchers. So it's a group of people that get together and go out and sketch the environment. And she's traveled around the world. And so she's very dynamic, great speaker, and it's going to lead us maybe in some interactive things. So don't be scared, but it should be fun. And then the 31st is Cecil Scott and Angie Calistro from Street Voices of Change will be here to talk about the lived experiences of homelessness and how we can come together to change their community. So with that, please go out and have a wonderful Rotary week and register for the boat cruise.